The diplomatic mask. The Grand Galactic Council chamber sparkled with the reflected light of 100 stars, its cavernous dome designed to humble even the most arrogant of species. Captain Elena Reyes stood perfectly straight, her midnight blue uniform pristine, as she led the human delegation through the massive doors. The whispering began immediately. "Humans," scoffed a towering rural diplomat to his colleague. "Always so accommodating." Elena pretended not to hear, though her enhanced hearing caught every syllable. 20 years of service in the United Earth Diplomatic Corps had perfected her ability to smile through insults. At her side walked Commander Jackson Chen, her executive officer and old friend from the academy. His face remained carefully neutral, but she noticed the slight tension in his jaw. "Remember," she whispered, "we're here to renew the Andromeda trade agreement, not start an incident." Jackson's lips barely moved. "I know the drill, Captain. Smile, nod, and pretend we don't notice when they patronize us." The council chamber seated representatives from over 300 species. Humans, having joined the galactic community only 80 years ago, were still considered newcomers. Most species had been traversing the stars for millennia before Earth had even discovered fire. They viewed humanity as a curiosity, diplomatic to a fault, polite beyond reason, and seemingly incapable of showing anger. If only they knew. "Captain Reyes," boomed Counselor Theric, a massive reptilian being whose scales shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. "Your presence honors us. I trust your journey was pleasant." Elena bowed precisely 15 degrees, the perfect amount to show respect without subservience. "Most pleasant, Counselor. The Terran diplomatic vessel Harmony enjoyed your escort's company." A delegation of Kelveri warriors snorted derisively from across the chamber. The Kelveri Empire, known for their aggressive expansion and warrior culture, had been pushing humanity's boundaries for years. Their lead representative, War Commander Drax, towered at almost 8 feet tall, his scarlet battle armor adorned with trophies from conquered worlds. "The humans arrive in a ship called Harmony," Drax announced loudly. "How characteristic. Tell me, Captain, does your vessel even have weapons, or just pretty words to fire at your enemies?" The chamber erupted in poorly concealed laughter. Elena maintained her smile, though anyone watching closely might have noticed it didn't reach her eyes. "The Harmony serves its purpose, War Commander," she replied smoothly, "just as I'm sure your vessels serve yours." Drax's yellow eyes narrowed. Humans had a reputation for backing down, for compromising at every turn. He had clearly expected her to stammer an apology or offer some diplomatic platitude. The subtle pushback, mild as it was, seemed to irritate him. "The Galactic Council recognizes the human delegation," announced High Chancellor Ziv, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate hovering vessel. "We shall commence with discussions regarding the renewal of the Andromeda trade agreement." For the next 3 hours, Elena and her team participated in the complex negotiations. The humans were a valuable trade partner. They controlled several resource-rich systems and had developed unique technologies that interested many species. Yet time and again, other delegations attempted to insert unfavorable terms, clearly expecting the humans to accept them without protest. Each time, Elena politely but firmly redirected the conversation, never raising her voice, never showing frustration. Her team followed her lead perfectly, maintaining pleasant expressions while systematically dismantling predatory proposals. During a brief recess, Elena stood by one of the massive crystal windows overlooking the galactic core, sipping a glass of water. Commander Chen joined her, his back to the spectacular view. "The Kelveri delegation has been watching you all day," he murmured. "War Commander Drax seems particularly fixated." Elena nodded almost imperceptibly. "He's testing boundaries. The Kelveri have never understood our diplomatic approach." Can you blame them? Most species equate politeness with weakness. "A dangerous assumption," Elena replied, her voice soft but edged with steel. Their conversation was interrupted when Drax himself approached, flanked by 2 junior officers. Up close, the Kelveri war commander was even more imposing. Sharp tusks protruded from his lower jaw, and ritual scars crisscrossed his leathery face. "Captain Reyes," he rumbled, "I find myself curious about humanity's history." Elena inclined her head. "I'd be happy to discuss it, War Commander. Your species emerged from a single planet, yes. No colony worlds, no genetic engineering by precursor races, just evolution on a backwater world. Earth is our homeworld, yes," Elena confirmed pleasantly. Drax leaned closer, his massive frame casting her in shadow. "Then explain how such a soft species survived. I studied your planet's predators. Your people would be prey to most of them. How did creatures who flinch from conflict manage to become spacefaring?" Elena's smile never wavered. "You misunderstand human history, War Commander. We've never flinched from conflict. We simply prefer to avoid it when possible. Preference or necessity." Drax challenged, his voice dropping to a growl. "The Kelveri Empire has been watching your colonies near the Cygnus Arm. Rich resources, minimal defenses. Some might see that as inviting." The threat was barely veiled. Commander Chen stiffened beside her, but Elena placed a subtle hand on his arm. "I wouldn't consider it an invitation," she replied, her tone unchanged but her eyes suddenly much colder. "Humanity values peace, War Commander. That doesn't mean we're unprepared for alternatives." Something in her voice, some quality that hadn't been there before, made Drax pause. For a fleeting moment, the Kelveri commander seemed to recognize that he might have misjudged the human captain. But the moment passed, and his contemptuous expression returned. "Pretty words," he sneered. "Always pretty words from humans." When the council reconvened, the atmosphere had shifted. The Kelveri delegation was openly hostile now, challenging every human proposal and suggesting increasingly aggressive amendments to the trade agreement. Other species watched with interest, curious to see how the famously diplomatic humans would respond to such blatant provocation. "The Kelveri Empire proposes a 50% tariff on all human exports through the Andromeda Gateway," announced Drax's chief negotiator, a proposition so outrageous that even allied species murmured in disapproval. Elena stood, her posture relaxed but commanding. "The United Earth Coalition finds this proposal unacceptable," she stated simply. No outrage, no indignation, just a calm statement of fact. "Unacceptable." Drax rose from his seat, towering over the assembly. "Perhaps the humans have forgotten their place in galactic hierarchy. Your species has existed in space for less than a century. The Kelveri Empire has ruled the stars for 50,000 years. Age does not determine worth, War Commander," Elena replied, still infuriatingly calm. "Nor does it grant special privileges under council law." Drax slammed his massive fist on the table, causing several delegates to jump. "Council law. You hide behind regulations while we could crush your worlds with a fraction of our fleet." A hush fell over the chamber. Direct threats of violence were forbidden in council proceedings. Even Drax's allies looked uncomfortable. Elena didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She simply held Drax's furious gaze with her steady one. "Is that an official declaration from the Kelveri Empire, War Commander?" she asked quietly. High Chancellor Ziv intervened, his energy form pulsing with concern. "War Commander Drax, you know the Council's protocols regarding threats of force." Drax growled but stepped back. Not a threat. An observation. The rest of the session proceeded tensely. When proceedings concluded for the day, Elena led her team back toward their quarters in the diplomatic wing. They had nearly reached their destination when an urgent communication came through on her secure channel. "Captain," came the voice of Lieutenant Marquez aboard the Harmony, "we're receiving distress signals from Varus Colony. They're under attack." Elena's face remained composed, but her eyes hardened to obsidian. "Source: Kelveri warships, Captain. 3 dreadnoughts. They dropped out of hyperspace without warning and opened fire on the settlement. Civilian casualties reported." Commander Chen swore under his breath. The other team members exchanged grim looks. "Lieutenant," Elena said, her voice unnaturally calm. "Initiate Protocol Omega. Authorization Reyes 937 Delta." There was a pause on the other end. "Protocol Omega confirmed, Captain. God help them." Elena terminated the connection and turned to her team. For the first time, the ever-present diplomatic smile was gone from her face, replaced by something ancient and dangerous. "It seems," she said quietly, "the Kelveri want to see what happens when humans stop being polite." Jackson Chen had served with Elena for 15 years. He had seen her negotiate peace between warring systems, diffuse tensions with hostile species, always maintaining perfect composure. But now, watching the transformation in her eyes, he remembered the old Earth saying, "Beware the fury of a patient person." "Captain," he said, "the Council will expect us to file a formal complaint, request sanctions." "We're well past that point, Commander." Elena straightened her uniform jacket with precise movements. "Contact Admiral Takahashi. Tell him to mobilize the 7th Fleet and inform our Council allies that humanity's diplomatic approach has just evolved." As they walked back toward the Council chamber, Elena's communicator chimed with an incoming message. It was from War Commander Drax. "Captain Reyes," his rough voice gloated, "perhaps now you understand the true order of things. Your Varus colony was pathetically defended. Consider this a lesson in galactic politics." Elena paused, then responded with just 4 words before ending the transmission. "Polite mode now deactivated. When politeness ends." The Council chamber erupted into chaos when Captain Elena Reyes strode back through the massive doors. Gone was the placid smile, the perfect posture of the diplomatic corps. Her midnight blue uniform remained immaculate, but something fundamental had changed in her bearing. Behind her walked Commander Chen and the rest of the human delegation, their expressions similarly transformed. "This emergency session will come to order," announced High Chancellor Ziv, his energy form pulsing with agitation. "We have received reports of unauthorized military action against a human settlement." War Commander Drax stood proudly, his massive frame radiating satisfaction. "The Kelveri Empire has conducted a necessary security operation in disputed territory," he declared. "The humans encroached on historical Kelveri space." Elena didn't take her seat at the human delegation's table. Instead, she walked calmly to the center of the chamber, standing directly beneath the ancient light of 1,000 stars. When she spoke, her voice carried throughout the vast space without effort. "Varus colony," she began, "was home to 30,000 civilians. Researchers, farmers, teachers, children. It was founded with full Council approval in neutral space, over 600 light years from the nearest Kelveri territory." She activated her wrist computer, and horrific images appeared on the Council's main display. Burning buildings, civilians running in terror, Kelveri warships firing indiscriminately at ground targets. "This was not a security operation," Elena continued, her voice dangerously controlled. "This was a massacre, and it was ordered by War Commander Drax as a direct response to our diplomatic interactions in this very chamber." Drax snorted dismissively. "Humans always exaggerate. A few buildings were damaged to demonstrate our seriousness. Perhaps now you'll show proper respect to superior species." Elena's eyes never left Drax as she activated another command on her wrist device. A communication channel opened, and Admiral Takahashi's face appeared on the main screen. "Admiral," Elena said. "Status report." The Admiral's expression was grim. "The 7th Fleet has arrived at Varus Colony. Rescue operations are underway. Confirmed casualties stand at 8,417, mostly civilians." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even some of the Kelveri delegates looked uncomfortable. "And the Kelveri forces?" Elena asked. 3 dreadnoughts as reported. They're maintaining position at the edge of the system." Elena nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. You may proceed with Phase 2. The transmission ended, and Elena finally turned to address the entire council. For 80 years, she said quietly, humanity has participated in galactic politics with the utmost respect and diplomacy. We've been patient. We've been understanding. We've tolerated condescension, insults, and prejudice. She gestured toward the Kelveri delegation, and some have mistaken our restraint for weakness. War Commander Drax laughed loudly. Restraint? You mean inability. Your species is soft, Captain Rice. Your diplomacy is merely a mask for your cowardice. The strong rule the galaxy, the weak negotiate. That is the natural order. Elena smiled then, but it wasn't the diplomatic smile the council had grown accustomed to. This smile was ancient, predatory, the smile of an apex hunter. You know so little of Earth's history, she said. Humanity didn't evolve to be diplomatic, War Commander. We evolved to be the most efficient predators on a world full of monsters. She circled slowly toward the Kelveri delegation. We developed cooperation and diplomacy, not because we were weak, but because we were so dangerous to each other that we needed ways to resolve conflicts without mutual destruction. A sudden commotion from the Kelveri aides drew everyone's attention. One of them was receiving an urgent communication, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. War Commander, he hissed urgently, the human fleet. It's not just at Varys. They've somehow... His words were cut short as the main display automatically activated, showing a tactical feed from somewhere in space. Dozens, no, hundreds, of sleek, dark vessels had surrounded the 3 Kelveri dreadnoughts at Varys Colony. But more shocking were the similar scenes playing out at 6 other locations across the galaxy. All major Kelveri military installations, all simultaneously surrounded by human vessels that had seemingly appeared from nowhere. Impossible, breathed Drax, his yellow eyes wide with disbelief. Our defense systems would have detected. Stealth technology, Elena explained calmly. One of many capabilities we developed but chose not to share with the galactic community. The council chamber had fallen completely silent now, every delegate frozen in shock. You see, War Commander, Elena continued, when humans say we prefer diplomatic solutions, it's not because we can't fight. It's because we know exactly what happens when we do. On the display, Admiral Takahashi's voice could be heard addressing the Kelveri forces. Kelveri vessels, power down your weapons systems and prepare to be boarded. You will surrender the officers responsible for the attack on Varys Colony to face justice for war crimes. The lead Kelveri dreadnought's response came immediately. Human vermin. We do not surrender to inferior species. The Kelveri Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. We will not bow to. The transmission cut off abruptly as a single weapon fired from the lead human vessel. It wasn't a standard energy weapon or missile. Instead, a pinpoint beam of blinding white light connected the human ship to the Kelveri dreadnought for less than a second. When it disappeared, the massive Kelveri warship had been sliced cleanly in two, its separate halves slowly drifting apart as atmosphere vented silently into space. By the ancestor stars, whispered an elder council member. What was that? Concentrated quantum filament technology, Commander Chen answered coolly. It severs molecular bonds at a subatomic level, just one of our defensive capabilities. The remaining Kelveri dreadnoughts quickly powered down their systems. On the other displays showing Kelveri military installations across the galaxy, similar surrenders were taking place simultaneously. War Commander Drax stood trembling, not with fear, Elena noted, but with rage. This is an act of war against the entire Kelveri Empire. You cannot possibly. We already have, Elena interrupted. While your forces were attacking unarmed civilians, human stealth fleets positioned themselves throughout Kelveri space. As we speak, every major military installation, shipyard, and command center in your empire is under our control. She turned to address the stunned council. Humanity does not want war. We never have. But make no mistake, We are exceptionally good at it. High Chancellor Ziv's energy form pulsed with concern. Captain Rice, while the Council condemns the Kelveri attack on your colony, this response seems disproportionate. Does it? Elena asked quietly. We haven't fired on civilian targets. We haven't bombarded populated worlds. We've neutralized military threats with minimal loss of life. She pointed to the images of Varus colony still visible on one corner of the display. Unlike our adversaries. She stepped closer to Drax, looking up at the massive warrior without a trace of intimidation. You assumed our diplomatic nature was our only nature, she said. A critical error. Humanity doesn't have just one face. We have many. You've simply never seen this one before. For the first time, something like uncertainty flickered in Drax's yellow eyes. What do you want? He growled. Justice for Varus colony, Elena replied immediately. The officers who carried out the attack will stand trial under council law. The Kelveri Empire will pay reparations to the survivors and the families of those killed. And you, War Commander, will publicly acknowledge your error in judgment. Drax snarled, baring his tusks. I would rather die then. That can be arranged. Elena cut in, her voice suddenly ice-cold. But it would be wasteful. You're far more valuable as an example of what happens when someone mistakes human kindness for weakness. The council chamber remained in stunned silence as Elena returned to the center of the floor. For any who might share the war commander's misconceptions, she addressed the assembly. Let me be perfectly clear. Humanity values peace. We believe in cooperation, in mutual benefit, in diplomatic solutions. We will always prefer words to weapons. She gestured toward the displays, showing human vessels efficiently neutralizing Kelveri military capabilities across the galaxy. But never, ever confuse our preference for diplomacy with an inability to defend ourselves. In the following days, the galactic political landscape shifted dramatically. The Kelveri Empire, once feared throughout the quadrant, accepted all of humanity's terms without further resistance. Other aggressive species that had been watching humanity's seemingly passive approach recalculated their strategies. Trade negotiations that had stalled for years suddenly concluded favorably. 2 weeks after the incident, Elena stood on the observation deck of the Harmony, watching as her ship prepared to depart the council station. Commander Chen joined her, datapad in hand. The last of the Varus survivors have been relocated, he reported. Reconstruction will begin next month. Elena nodded. And the council's response? They granted our request for expanded colonization rights in 3 sectors. The Galactic Security Committee has also approved our application for a permanent seat. She smiled faintly. Funny how reasonable everyone has become. Fear tends to have that effect, Chen remarked. Elena shook her head. It's not fear I want from them, Jackson. It's understanding. Humanity isn't exceptional because we can fight. Most species can. We're exceptional because we choose not to unless necessary. Chen studied her thoughtfully. Do you think they understand that now? Some do, she replied, watching as they passed a Kelveri diplomatic vessel. Inside, War Commander Drax, now stripped of his military authority, was being transported back to his homeworld in disgrace. He caught sight of Elena through the viewport and held her gaze for a long moment before inclining his head in a gesture that wasn't quite respect, but was no longer contempt. The others will learn, Elena continued, turning away. Humanity's place in the galaxy isn't determined by how politely we can negotiate or how effectively we can fight. It's determined by knowing when each approach is necessary. As the Harmony engaged its engines and departed the council station, other vessels gave it a wide berth. Not out of fear, Elena hoped, but out of a new respect for boundaries. The human ship's name, once mocked by the Kelveri as a sign of weakness, now carried a different meaning throughout the galaxy. Harmony wasn't just an aspiration, it was a choice. And as the galaxy had learned, humanity's choices should never be taken lightly. In her quarters later that evening, Elena received a message from Earth Central Command. New diplomatic missions were being planned, new colonies established. The galaxy was watching humanity with new eyes now, curious about what other capabilities might lie beneath their diplomatic exterior. Captain, the message concluded, you are hereby authorized to reactivate standard diplomatic protocols. Polite mode re-engage. Elena smiled to herself. The easy diplomatic smile would return. The patience, the careful words, the measured responses. But now, when she extended her hand in friendship to new species across the galaxy, they would understand that it was never weakness that drove humanity's kindness. It was strength.